Was Led Zeppelin really the king of the 70s? Or did these 5 bands leave them in the dust? Hold on to your guitar picks because we're about to drop some truth bombs that might make you question everything you thought you knew about rock history. But before we blow your mind with the truth about who really rocked the 70s, smash that like button and hit subscribe, or your playlist might stay stuck in the past forever. Let's start this countdown with number 5, AC/DC, The Thunder from Down Under. These Australian rockers didn't just make music, they made earthquakes. AC/DC proved that sometimes the simplest approach hits the hardest. While Led Zeppelin explored mystical themes and complex arrangements, AC/DC stuck to raw power and perfected it. Their 1980s albums, Back in Black, sold around 50 million copies worldwide, making it the second best-selling album of all time, after Michael Jackson's Thriller. And they made it right after their lead singer, Bon Scott, died. Most bands would have quit. AC/DC found Brian Johnson and made their masterpiece. The Young brothers Malcolm and Angus created a blueprint that every hard rock and metal band would follow. Simple riffs played loud and proud. No tricks, just force. Their live shows were legendary. Boys. Angus in his schoolboy outfit sliding across the stage during Whole Lotta Rosie. No pyro, no lasers, just sweat, grit, and volume. And consistency was their secret weapon. From 1975 to 1990, they didn't drop a single weak album. While Zeppelin had highs and lows, AC/DC just kept punching. They left fingerprints all over metal. Metallica, Guns N' Roses, and others all point to them as a key influence. Rick Rubin once called them the greatest rock and roll band of all time. Even during the 1985 Satanic Panic, when critics blamed Nightprowler for inspiring crime, AC/DC didn't flinch. They just kept throwing up devil horns and rocking harder. In 2008, their Black Ice tour became one of the highest grossing ever. Not bad for a band that stuck to the basics. But if you think that raw power is impressive, wait until you hear about our next band who literally invented new ways to perform rock music. Number 4, The Who, the mad scientist of rock. The Who didn't just play rock, they blew it apart and rebuilt it louder, faster, and smarter. 4 madmen from London kicked off the first rock opera with Tommy in 1969. While others were making albums, The Who were telling full-blown stories through sound. Pete Townshend's windmill strums became iconic. Roger Daltrey turned mic swinging to a signature move. Keith Moon wasn't a drummer, he was a detonation. And John Entwistle's bass lines were more like lead guitar solos. Now if this sounds like your kind of chaos, hit like and let's see how many Who fans are out there. Their 1970s live album, Live at Leeds, is still hailed as the greatest live rock record ever. Raw, chaotic, and loud enough to knock your speakers over. They weren't just good on stage, they were a force of nature. What made The Who better than Led Zeppelin though? They weren't just riff machines, they were boundary breakers. They used synthesizers before it was cool. They stacked amps like skyscrapers, and they invented smashing guitars on stage as performance art. They scored 4 #1 albums on the US charts. Zeppelin only had 2. That's not luck, that's the impact. Quadrophenia wasn't just music, it was rebellion, identity, youth crisis, all wrapped in thunderous riffs. And the chaos? Keith Moon once drove a Lincoln into a swimming pool. Another time he blew up toilets with cherry bombs. Total mayhem. Their 1975 US tour smashed attendance records. 78,000 fans at the Silver Dome, 600,000 total at the Isle of Wight in 1970. Everyone from The Clash to Pearl Jam took notes from The Who. Punk, prog, alt-rock, they all owe something to these legends. But if you thought that The Who were theatrical, wait until you see the next band. They turned concerts into full-scale Broadway productions. We're talking about number 3, Queen, the arena rock opera masters. Queen didn't just perform, they turned every concert into a spectacle. Freddie Mercury wasn't just a great frontman, he was the greatest. Robert Plant was good, but Mercury was untouchable. Queen's 1981 Greatest Hits is still the UK's best-selling album ever. In Britain, they crushed the competition, including Led Zeppelin. Bohemian Rhapsody broke all the rules, 6 minutes long, no chorus, and it still dominated the radio for 9 weeks at number 1. That's not a hit, that's a cultural reset. Queen has sold between 250 to 300 million records globally, right up there with Zeppelin, but with way more mainstream reach. Brian May didn't just play guitar, he built his own, literally, with his dad, and played it with a coin. Bohemian Rhapsody had 180 vocal overdubs. That's next level precision. But the Queen's real flex? They mastered every genre: rock, pop, funk, disco, opera. Another One Bites the Dust went #1 in America by mixing rock with funk. Zeppelin never pulled that off. And then there's Live Aid. 20 minutes of pure magic. Mercury had 72,000 people in the palm of his hands. Stadium Rock was never the same after that. Their stage shows? Iconic. Leotards, crowns, strobe lights. They made other bands look tame. In 1981, they met Maradona on tour in South America. Because of course they did. Only Queen could bring together rock and football royalty. Their arena rock influence is massive. The crowd sing-along? They invented it. Queen didn't just change rock, they expanded what it could be. Now let's talk about the band that took rebellion and made it their religion. Number 2, the Rolling Stones, the endless rock and roll machine. The Rolling Stones have been rocking for over 60 years and they're still not done. By the late 70s, they had already outsold Led Zeppelin worldwide with over 250 million records. And unlike Zeppelin, who quit in 1980s, the Stones just kept going. They got 14 #1 albums in the UK compared to Zeppelin's 6. It's not even close. The Stones were hit-making machines that never stopped. Mick Jagger redefined what it meant to be a rock star. The moves, the attitude, the swagger, every frontman since has been copying Jagger whether they admit it or not. Keith Richards created riffs that became the foundation of rock and roll. Satisfaction, Start Me Up, Gimme Shelter. These aren't just songs, they're anthems that will outlive us all. They influenced the punk and indie rock alike. The Ramones, The Clash, and countless others borrowed their raw energy and rebel spirit. Their 1975 tour of the Americas was pure chaos. Keith Richards got arrested in Toronto. The band partied harder than anyone ever thought possible and still crushed every show. What made them better than Led Zeppelin was versatility and longevity. The Stones could do it all: blues, country, disco, reggae, and straight rock and roll. Miss You in 1978 showed that they could even master disco if they wanted to. They set touring records that still stand. By 2007, they had broken the highest grossing tour record 3 times. Zeppelin's tours were epic, but short-lived and full of drama. The Altamont Free concert in 1969 could have ended their career. Instead, it became legend. The Stones survived scandals that would have destroyed other bands. Brian Jones's mysterious death in 1969 could have been the end. Instead, they got Mick Taylor. When Taylor left, they brought in Ron Wood. The machine never stopped. Led Zeppelin made legendary albums, but the Rolling Stones built a legendary career. They proved that rock and roll wasn't just music, it was a way of life. But if you think that the Stones were impressive, our #1 band changed rock forever. We're of course talking about Pink Floyd, the mind-bending masters. Pink Floyd didn't just make music, they created experiences that changed lives. The Dark Side of the Moon sold 45 million copies and stayed on the Billboard chart for 14 years. That's 7 years longer than most bands even last. Led Zeppelin's biggest album, 4, sold around 37 million. Close, but not quite. But Pink Floyd was never just about numbers. They turned rock into art. Their albums weren't just songs, they were journeys. They shaped the sound of progressive rock, metal, and electronic music. Radiohead, Tool, and Dream Theater owe them big. Roger Waters wrote lyrics about mental illness, war, isolation, the dark side of fame, topics most bands ran from. He made thinking cool, and David Gilmour, his solos weren't just technical, they were pure feeling. Comfortably Numb still gives people chills after 40 years. Their concerts? Pure spectacle. Flying pigs, giant screens, surround sound. The wall shows in 1980s had actual wall built around the stage. One show cost more than the other band's entire tours. Pink Floyd outlasted Led Zeppelin. While Zeppelin ended in 1980, Floyd kept going through the 80s and 90s with hit albums. Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 became a global rebellion anthem and helped shape MTV's future. Their album covers became pop culture icons. That prism on Dark Side? You've seen it even if you've never heard the record. And the band's internal drama only added to the legend. Sid Barrett's tragic fall, Waters versus Gilmour, the lawsuits, it was all part of the myth. And that's why Pink Floyd wasn't just better than Led Zeppelin, they were bigger, and they still are. So, what's your take? Was the Led Zeppelin really the best? Or are we just scared to admit otherwise? Drop your thoughts below, like and share, and if you're ready for more chaos, go watch our last video on 7 icons better than AC/DC.